Evening, decoding the budget. I'm joined by Jayant Sinha, Member of Parliament of the BJP and former MOS Finance, Dr Amar Patnaik, Member of Parliament of the BJD. Also joining us this evening, Ghanshyam Tiwari, National Spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party, Dr Shashi Panja, Minister in charge of the Department of Women and Child Development and Social Welfare of the Trinamool Congress. But my first question goes to Priyanka Chaturvedi, Member of Parliament of the Shiv Sena. Priyanka Chaturvedi, how do you rate this budget? Because critically acclaimed, as I said at the beginning of the show, has ticked the right boxes as far as being sensible is concerned and not doling out despite the temptation of elections around the corner, following a direct trajectory of growth and development and capital expenditure. Do you think we are a mature democracy where these steps can also be appreciated every once in a while?
So one thing is about critical acclaim. The other is addressing the genuine problems of the people of this country. So critical acclaim, yes, you, me, CII, FICCI and various chambers will also say very good budget, very good budget. However, how is it impacting the Aam Aadmi? Aam Aadmi has a problem on two fronts. One is the rising cost of living. The second is about joblessness. How has the government addressed this particular issue? I'd want to know from you, I'd want to know from the Bharatiya Janata Party spokesperson, how have they managed to address it? Every time a question is asked of, the growing joblessness, all they say is, okay, now we are going to be spending on infrastructure building. Great, this is something you could have done last year. You could have done that a year before that also. You continue to hold on to the money, not ensure that welfare schemes were reaching to the people, not ensure that people had money in their hands. Today we are sitting in a situation where 85% of this country has been pushed into lower incomes or no income at all. How are we addressing that? Today's budget was talking about bringing digital education into the lives of people. How many people have access to digital technology in India? Those are, pertinent questions that need to be asked. You have cut down the budget of Manrega. You have cut down the fuel subsidy. You have cut down on fertilizer subsidy. You're cutting down on the subsidies that people were looking at, farmers were looking at especially. Senior citizens who have retired, they look at rate of investment on their savings. It makes it difficult for them to pass an entire month on the basis of the interest that they're getting. Pre-2014 era, it used to be around 12% a fixed deposit could get you that. What is it giving you now? Less than 5%. So these are questions that need to be asked, and these are the questions that matter to a large number of population. Critical acclaim coming from the chambers of few economists or air-conditioned homes, I don't think that is the answer to the problems that people have been facing post-2014. And I think it would be reassuring if we hear something positive coming from the BJP spokesperson.
Jayant Sinha, a fiery tirade by Priyanka Chaturvedi. Would you like to respond to her?
Our focus has always been to provide extensive support to vulnerable populations. And through the COVID pandemic, whether it is the 172 crore vaccination doses that we have provided, the 80 crore people that we have supported with free food grains, the crores of farmers that we have supported through the Kisan Samman Nidhi, or the lakhs and crores of women that we have supported through the Jan Dhan cash transfer program. Through it all, through a once-in-a-century pandemic, we have provided support to vulnerable populations in a way that has been unprecedented in global history. Countries around the world are marveling at the fact that throughout this pandemic, the worst economic recession that the world has seen for decades, that not a single person went hungry in India because we were able to launch this massive food distribution program. So wherever we needed to provide vulnerable populations the support that they needed, we have done that. And that is why our spending was elevated. We went up to 9.5% fiscal deficit. And even this year, the spending has gone up to 6.9% fiscal deficit. But as we are coming off that historic sort of pandemic crisis, and we're getting into much more normal economic activity, those elevated levels of welfare spending will naturally come down, which is why some of those allocations will come down. I'll remind you all that Narega, by the way, is an on-demand program. The Honorable Finance Minister has allocated 73,000 crores for Narega in the coming year. But if more people demand that work, more people will get that work. And if there are any further challenges with respect to food security, we will certainly step up the food security spending as we have throughout the last year. So wherever we need to provide support, Gaon, Garib, Kisan, we have absolutely done that and will continue to do that. But it's time now to switch to a new chapter. And that new chapter is a chapter of growth, it's a chapter for investment, and it's a chapter for job creation. And that is what we have done through this budget, where we have provided incredible incentives, incredible support for the job creating sectors of the economy, which are, of course, infrastructure, which is manufacturing through the PLI schemes. It's to MSMEs that we have provided enormous credit support, and to startups where we continue to provide them incentive after incentive so that they can continue their excellent growth and further position India at the cutting edge as far as innovation and technology is concerned. So we have provided the support that was required during the COVID pandemic. We have managed the crisis extraordinarily well. It's been marveled around the world. And now the time has come to switch to robust, medium-term sustainable growth. And that's exactly what we're doing right now, which is why economists and the budget observers, as well as the share market, are applauding this budget. Of course, we would not expect the opposition to do that. It's their job to criticize, and they're welcome to do so. But I think as far as the work of putting the budget together and presenting it to the general public is concerned, you'll find that there is appreciation all around.
Well, Dr. Amar Patnaik, I want to ask you fair and square. Do you agree with the scenario that's put out by Mr. Jayant Sinha, or do you have the same kind of questions as Priyanka Chaturvedi of the Shiv Sena has raised? Because, you know, the views really differ in the political class from which side of the aisle you're coming from. If you're from the treasury benches, you see everything rosy, and if you're from the opposition benches, even if there's something good, nobody is willing to acknowledge that yes, there is something good in the budget apart from something negative that they might want to talk about. So, Mr. Amar Patnaik, do you think it's all bad budget, or do you think there are positives in the budget?
Navika, actually, we are in the middle benches. We are neither on this side nor on that side. So I'll give you a very fair assessment of the budget. I think in terms of policy direction, in the economic sense or even in the social sense, I think the direction was very clear and the continuity has been maintained since the last budget. The use of technology for, particularly during the time of the pandemic when we are going for online education, use of technology to dispense education to the remotest area, to people. Of course, the fact remains, as Priyanka ji says, that internet connectivity, but she has spoken about BharatNet as well. So I think the policy direction is very good. The investment-led growth as a very, very important lever of growth in the economy, I think is well taken. The expenditure, increased expenditure, massive increase in expenditure in the capital sector is very good actually. Many of the states, in fact, I would say that giving that allocation to the states as well, 1 lakh crore for capital expenditure is good. I would also say that the PLI scheme, which has worked well, would also mitigate a number of the supply side issues as well as, create demand. So many of the things, in fact, I like the most important thing which I really liked in the budget is the interoperability about the post offices and the banking system. So a number of things has been done. But if you look at the real situation, let's look at the unemployment figure. The unemployment figure, September-December 2021 that I have before me is rural 7%, urban 7.9%, aggregate 7.31%. January-April 2018, 3 years ago, it was 5.3 and 6%. So to wish away employment as getting created because of the last budget, or is going to get created because of the massive push that is being given to investment. You see, infrastructure investment, there is a lag in creation of wealth as well as employment at the bottom of the pyramid. And that's what is happening in Orissa, for example. Our proposal to the center is to increase our NREGS budget to 25 crore labor mandates, and that has not yet been accepted. So the point is, and even the Economic Service says that the pre-pandemic level of demand for jobs in rural areas has not declined. Therefore, there is nothing which has been done for this. I think I would have been happier had the budget looked at this particular category of people. The budget would have looked at these people, farmers. Let's say the subsidy has been withdrawn to a massive amount in food subsidy has been reduced. The gas subsidy has been reduced. But you see, the pandemic has the recovery from the pandemic for the upper section of the society may have taken place, and the growth has indeed happened. But we can't forget that 23 crore people have fallen back below the poverty line. And therefore, creation of economic activity, livelihood support to them in a more direct way is something which we would have wanted.
So
the
jobs,
farmers,
you're saying,
we have always been saying that the
jobs you're saying is the single biggest worry area, pressure point in this economy, and that is going to take a bit of time despite the jump of 35.4% in capital expenditure.
And inflation, high price rise.
Absolutely. And in such a situation, and let me get in Dr. Shashi Panja, of the Trinamool Congress. Minister Shashi Panja, I want to ask you, it's a twin whammy: joblessness, high inflation, and no tax cuts. So is that the side of the budget that we're looking at, which the government doesn't agree with? Because it's given a roadmap, and let's be fair about it, the roadmap of investment growth is there. Nobody can challenge that. It's there, but the fact is, it's going to result in something maybe a little while down the line. But right now, for those,
a K-shaped recovery. I always say it's a K-shaped recovery.
Exactly, and for those who are sitting on an empty stomach today, this budget really doesn't give them any reprieve in the short run. Would you agree with that assessment?
No, I would just like to, at the very outset, refer to your Twitter poll. I was looking at it. The Twitter poll, there is a poll that you're conducting. Has the budget addressed Aam Janta concerns? And you just look at the poll, you have 61% saying no. So that's a small observation, I think, but a big mandate. I mean, people who are tweeting are definitely not the Aam Aadmi. So they do understand it doesn't address the Aam Aadmi. Secondly, we have been told that this India at 100, that means this is a budget as if it's been laid out for 25 years. Why are we not having a budget next year? Is the government not getting an opportunity to lay it? So as we understand, very simply, we understand that it's an annual financial statement, and you speak of your previous announcements and how much it has been implemented and your successes and how you wish to take this further on and what is the future course of action. But you see, there have been announcements the previous year and the year before that and also before that. And where do we get to hear those? I mean, there were announcements like the Kisan Yojana and how many people have benefited. Coming to that, I just wanted to mention there's a contradiction.
16 crore. If you look at the fine print in the budget, 16 crore, over 16 crore farmers have been given 2.37 lakh crores through direct benefit transfer. That number is in the budget.
What happened to the Kisan income, which should be doubling? No. We need to know whether the Kisan income has doubled in 2022. It was supposed to double. So those are data. Those are just an example. And there is a contradiction. Even the minister. At one time you speak that no, we don't believe in dole economics. But on the other hand, in the next same breath, you mention about having given free rations to 80 crore people, free vaccines to people. I mean, what is this? You are contradicting yourself. So what should we understand this is the job of the government. This is the responsibility of the government. So you need to appreciate that was the need of the moment. Similarly, the need at this moment for the next 1 year is how do we address the the sharp fall in the informal or you can say the unorganized sector. What's wrong in asking or flagging issues of unemployment? There is nothing wrong in asking why there is a drop.
Fair point. We'll get Jayant Sinha to answer that. We'll get Jayant Sinha to answer that question, because it is fair to ask that question, that if people don't have jobs, inflation is rising, pressure is on the Aam Aadmi. What do we do with them? But let me get in Ghanshyam Tiwari first before I get Jayant Sinha to answer all the questions that have come his way. Ghanshyam Tiwari, do you think this budget resists from a soap opera ahead of elections and should be commended for it, or do you think you would want to criticize just because you're in the opposition?
Good evening, Navika ji, to you, my fellow co-panelists and the viewers. And let me start by congratulating Nirmala Sitharaman ji for presenting our fourth budget. Let me quote the late Arun Jaitley from 28th February 2015. The year 2022 will be Amrit Mahotsav 75th year, and Jayant Sinha ji was Minister of State for Finance, so he would remember that. A roof for every family in India, housing for all, 2 crore houses in urban areas, 4 crore houses in rural areas, 24-hour supply, clean drinking water, a toilet, connected roads. I can continue, electrification. It speaks about good health, education. And alongside, it concludes by saying by the time of 75th year of independence, Indian independence, that is 2022, Amrit Mahotsav of our independence is reached, we would have achieved all of these above goals. 2 crore urban houses, 4 crore rural houses. In the same year, it was announced, and I see Economics Times, that the postal department, 1,54,000 post offices will be converted into payment bank, and an RBI license has been applied. So you speak about a movie. There is a movie. The trailer was released in 2015. The movie never came out. And version 2 is getting released in 2022. That was entering Amrit Mahotsav. This is Amrit Kal. There's a time in life of a government when propaganda must stop and reality must hit the ground. In this government, propaganda never stops. You come to a budget session where people are hungry. They are without jobs. Schools have been shut. 30 crore children are not going to school. And you announce a budget where there's nothing for these children, there's nothing for the unemployed youth. You are saying that to the middle class that we did not tax you and that is good enough for you. The reality is our Prime Minister, जब वो 12 करोड़ की गाड़ी, 10 लाख के सूट और 1 लाख का चश्मा पहनते हैं, तो उनको देश की गरीबी दिखाई नहीं देती, देश की बेरोजगारी नहीं दिखाई देती, सिर्फ अपने भाषण दिखाई देते हैं। इस सरकार का विजन मखमली हो गया है, इनको देश के असली मुद्दे पता ही नहीं है। पुराने बजट को नए बजट के रूप में पेश किया जाता है। अब आप 25 साल का अमृत महोत्सव मनाते रहिए या अमृत काल मनाते रहिए। इस बजट में आपको सिर्फ मोक्ष के बाद कुछ मिल सकता है। अभी जो बच्चा स्कूल में है उसको कुछ नहीं मिलेगा, उसके बच्चे को कुछ मिल सकता है। अभी जो बेरोजगार है उसे कुछ नहीं मिलेगा, उससे अगली पीढ़ी को कुछ मिल सकता है। बजट एक साल का होता है।
That's a tirade that will take some time in answering, but pertinent questions. So Jayant Sinha, you have to respond to 3 critics in a row who found several areas and several gaps in this budget. Respond to all of those questions. Pick up the one that you want to answer first.
Thank you, Navika ji, and let's go one by one. First, let's start with what Ghanshyam ji was saying, which is that, these statements were made in the budget of 2016 and they have not been delivered, and now this is just the same budget being repeated after 5 or 6 years. That's entirely untrue. Ghanshyam ji knows, and it is a fact. Amar ji, of course, is from Odisha as well. Shashi ji is from West Bengal. We represent different states of this country, and in fact, from the more poorer parts of the country as well. And anywhere you go in the country now, you'll find virtually in every village, जो कच्चे घर थे, जो खपरेल के घर थे, आज वो मिट्टी के घर, पक्के घर बनते चले जा रहे हैं। हर घर में शौचालय है, हर घर को बिजली मिल गई है। अब जल्द से जल्द हम लोग उन लोगों को नल में पानी भी पहुंचा रहे हैं। सब जगह जल मीनार बन गए हैं, सोलर मीनार बन गए हैं। पक्की सड़कें बन गई हैं। जो हमने वादे किए थे उन वादों पे हम खरे उतरे हैं और हम लोग दूर दराज गांवों तक में हम लोगों ने ये पहुंचा दिया है. And this is not just a question of the development work that we did pre-COVID, because all of this was done pre-COVID. We put in place the Ayushman Bharat scheme, which of course was a lifesaver when the COVID pandemic came. And during the COVID pandemic, as I said earlier, we delivered 172 crore vaccine doses so that 90% of our adult population has received one dose, 70% have received two doses. And Dr. Panja is a medical doctor. She knows how difficult it is. And I have been deeply involved in the rollout of these vaccine programs, and getting it to every single individual in every single village is a mammoth undertaking that we have accomplished during the COVID pandemic. And as I said earlier, this is a historic crisis that comes once in a century. We were able to provide the support to the vulnerable populations during this time. We had done the development work. We had put in place the Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, mobile trinity that enabled us to provide direct cash payments into people's bank accounts, enable them to get through all of this very, very difficult time. You should just see the state of other developing countries that had not put in place this digital infrastructure and how difficult it was for them to deal with this pandemic. India is being admired around the world for having done this. Now, once the pandemic is over, it's very important once again to be able to, as all your panelists are saying, that we turn towards unemployment, we turn towards providing opportunities for our young people. And we have done that very substantially in the past and through this budget.
Well, truly spoken, as the chairperson of the Committee on Finance, Jayant Sinha. Of course, when there is a budget and when there are so many expectations, 135 crore people in this country, and multiply that with at least 10 expectations per person, then that is the number of expectations that you have to fulfill. The best way to look at this budget is really, is it a glass full that you will look at, half a glass full or half a glass empty? That's really the answer to looking at this budget. Of course, it doesn't do everything for everybody, and of course, it does a lot for many people. Can we actually have a budget that does everything for everybody in this country? Well, so far we haven't come across a budget like that. It's work in progress. This is 1 year, and sometimes in a year, when a government presents a budget that is so balanced, so mature, so disciplined, that it doesn't give in to the temptation of a soap opera and does the consolidation work, it should be appreciated for that. As far as dil mange more, well, dil to always mange more, and will continue to ask for more. Thank you very much to my political panel for joining me on the debate tonight. A very healthy discussion on the gaps in the budget and what has been achieved. It's not the last budget that we're discussing, and it clearly isn't the only budget that solves 100% of the problems that India has. Thank you. And